I'm Allison Linland. I lead the strategy organization at Movable Ink. You might have heard my voice on our prior webinars or on our podcast, Ink Tank. I'm thrilled to be here as your MC today. A few housekeeping items for you all to kick us off. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we're going to share the recording in a follow-up email. You can submit questions at any time, and we're going to answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. And the modules on your screen are fully customizable, so you can move or resize them however you'd like. Please make sure the audio on your computer is fully turned up. Our mandate today is to ensure that you have a clear sense of what's going to help your programs continue to grow and deliver against the personalization imperative that we know is so effective, and how you're going to do this against the backdrop of the new iOS 15 world. Today's call is going to be hosted by the Movable Ink strategy team. This is our SWAT team that's focused on solving C-level business challenges with Movable Ink software on behalf of our most strategic clients. Each of them is going to have the chance to introduce themselves before their respective session. By way of introducing myself, in addition to leading our strategy organization, I'm the 14th employee of Movable Ink. Prior to starting the strategy team, I actually led the US customer success team and met many of you all. Before joining Movable Ink, I was on your side of the table at Amex on the email and mobile team. And I started my career in email at Ogilvy Interactive, just to date myself, when Interactive was a division of direct mail. So speaking of the maturity of the email channel, to start out, I think it's really important to look at this moment in the context of the channel's now 50-year to this year evolution. Email has evolved from a text-only batch and blast medium, essentially digital direct mail, into a highly visual, personalized, integrated channel, and has done so against a backdrop of more and more stringent constraints on how to protect the security and privacy of the consumer. So why should we be concerned that this change will thwart any more innovation or progress in the channel going forward? No, we evolve, and as we have always evolved. And Movable Ink's own journey has mirrored this evolution. In 2010, we launched the company with use cases leveraging context because it was all that was readily available for marketers to personalize with. But soon, smart marketers realized that they could tap into APIs, many built to power their websites or mobile apps, to automatically create more meaningful, personalized user experiences with first-party data. And this significantly raised the bar on what was possible from a customer experience and performance standpoint. In 2016, we stepped into the behavioral realm with our Stories product, which enabled marketers to seamlessly understand what customers were doing on the web and use that data in their email content, all in a fully automated fashion. So for example, a retailer will be able to see that Allison was looking at shoes and Khalil was looking at luggage, and use that to personalize their emails automatically. This product innovation gave our clients more ready access to first-party behavioral data. In tandem, we expanded our Studio tool to empower marketers to easily automate the creation of millions of creative variations using brand-approved assets to pair with this data. In 2019, after we crossed over 1,000 first-party custom API integrations for our clients, we launched our Exchange, making it easier for all clients to activate other parts of their tech stack into personalized content. And this, coupled with Studio, generated automated creative variations to create that one-to-one experience. And we did this all against the backdrop of significant investments in privacy, security, and compliance, which we believe has always been in the best interest, not just of the consumer, but also the marketer, achieving SOC 2 security certification in 2020 and ISO 27001 and 27701 security certifications in 2021. And in case you're not intimately familiar with these, they're the highest level of certifications. So, shifting into what's actually included into the update and what brings us here today, there are 4 pieces that are most relevant to marketers. Firstly, a core part of the iOS 15 update will be how Apple will be masking the recipient's IP address. Secondly, they will be loading remote images as a means of thwarting how tracking pixels will work. This means that images will be loaded sometime between delivery and recipient open. It also means that because Apple will cache the images, all emails will be recorded as opened. As a part of the paid iCloud Plus offering, they're expanding their Sign In with Apple feature to allow consumers to hide my email and essentially create burner accounts. And lastly, they'll be offering a private relay, which also encrypts all internet traffic. So, as you start to think about those updates, I want to highlight a few general considerations that all marketers should be aware of as they prepare for rollout in September. The biggest headline has been, obviously, that opens are dead. And while that's a trope, opens are an imperfect metric that are now going to become a lot more flawed. And this is going to force senders to rely on more meaningful downstream metrics, such as clicks, conversion events, and revenue, which is not a bad thing. It's just going to take an evolution. If you have complex journeys that rely on open data, you should speak to your ESP about restructuring those rules soon to avoid false signals. And for the same reason, send time optimization is going to be flawed, and monitoring inbox placement will become even more difficult to track. There are two areas where movable link functionality may be impacted. Firstly, open time personalization. Due to the caching at mail inception, images that are set to change at open time that are relying on up-to-the-minute data may be impacted. Images will be deployed post-send, but prior to open. But customer impact may be nominal due to data latency from underlying services. Time has always been an appealing data point for marketers, but due to the limitations of back-end enterprise data services, most underlying information is only updating every 24 hours. So even with the changes, customers will continue to see the most timely content. And second, contextual personalization may be impacted because anything that draws from context at the time of open, like location, time, device, can be affected because of the IP masking. But contextual use cases such as location, time, and weather can continue to be powered leveraging first or zero-party data such as zip or preferred stored, which is a much more secure way to achieve the same personalization. We'll be speaking throughout the presentation and publishing content over the coming weeks and months to strategic workarounds to meeting your customer experience and, more importantly, performance objectives. And when it comes to strategies that are going to deliver performance, as we've seen over the last 8 years, first-party data not only works for marketers, it's what consumers expect. And for those whose teams span programmatic and have been anticipating the post-cookie landscape, this was apparent on that side of the house over a year ago. And marketers across all industries have been making more and more significant investments in this type of data. So where do you get this first-party data, especially in a world where your own tech organizations are reporting record-breaking tech debt? Well, here are a few examples of ready resources that our clients can leverage directly via the Movable Link platform to pull first and zero-party data into your programs automatically without needing laborious custom dev resources from your own tech organizations. The types of data include data that's merged in via the ESP or mobile messaging provider, a third-party API that we can do a custom integration with directly, a good old-fashioned CSV file, or pulling in from a native tracking pixel. And lastly, and increasingly one of the more popular options is leveraging either a CDP or our stories profile data, which allows us to retarget consumers with recent time site behavior. Our Movable Link Exchange is now also up to over 50 integrated off-the-shelf partnerships. And of course, all the data that I've referred to today can be transmitted back to your data lake or data warehouse so you can continue to build that single lens of the customer. And all of this first-party data comes together automatically in the template to create these powerful one-to-one customer experiences that drive performance, whether it's award-winning data visualizations that celebrate customer loyalty or behavioral milestones, abandoned cart campaigns, power stories, which draw customers back in with their actual products, personalized birthday greetings tied to reward programs, or plug-and-play integrations with our exchange partners, which improve the relevance and personalization of the programs with no lifts to your teams. These are the strategies that changes of how to deliver against the personalization imperative in the new privacy landscape. So let's get into how to actually make these happen. Julio, take it away.
All right, thanks, Allison. For those of you who I've not met, my name is Julio Lopez, and I'm the Director of Retail Strategy here at Movable Link. I've spent the last 12 years working across MarTech and retail, and have been with Movable Link for the last 3.5 years. I'm excited to be here to showcase a few of the strategies I know will be most influential in maneuvering the iOS 15 changes. And while I am focused on retail, I do know that these strategies could be very applicable across retails. So I'm going to take the next 8 minutes to talk about retail, but note that your Movable Link contacts will have a lot more tactical detail to share in your upcoming meetings. So I'll kick things off by saying what an interesting time it is to be a marketer. Going right from COVID challenges into iOS 15, it really does feel like we already have a playbook for dealing with the unexpected. I've had many conversations with the exec teams of many of the retailers on the line, and the sentiment that has been shared is that this is simply a time for innovation. If there's anything that is a constant in our world, is that we're always looking for ways to meet and exceed customer expectations, and our focus areas simply ebb and flow based on what's going on in the market. So yes, today we are focused on iOS 15, but if we take a step back, email has always been about customer retention. And these iOS 15 changes simply come at a time when customer retention is one of our highest priorities, given that we're still dealing with the fallout from COVID. Most retailers gain new e-commerce customers due to COVID, but those customers are continuing to bounce between brands, resulting in lower customer retention rates. But the tools in our arsenal are still the same. We're still focused on leveraging first-party data to hyper-personalize emails. We're still focused on delivering the right message at the right time as individuals move along the purchase funnel. And we're still focused on creating unified omni-channel experiences. So yes, how we go about that may change due to iOS 15, but our end goal remains the same. It's about finding different ways to achieve the same objectives. So take, for example, loyalty programs. Many of you have a loyalty program that you use to drive incremental engagement and spend, and often the value of the program is communicated in BAU messages by having a dashboard at the top of the email. Since Apple will cache the image when it's fetched, loyalty data may not be as accurate as it once was. But I'd ask, is that really the best way to achieve our goal of communicating the value of the loyalty program and driving engagement, or can the role of loyalty be elevated? To be clear, the trackers will still work, and they can be automatically timestamped if you wish to show when the image was rendered. But our focus should be on bringing loyalty to the next level. For example, many of you leverage Movable Link's behavioral tracking capability to pull in abandoned cart data into promotional messages. If one of the loyalty program benefits is free shipping, and the consumer has recently abandoned an item in their cart, we can replace the tracker and use the opportunity to remind them of the free shipping benefit. Elevating the role of loyalty in BAU messages means creating different use cases that are more strategic and still feasible within the iOS 15 changes. Another shift I've been discussing with other retail leaders is how can we get additional value out of our loyalty programs? As more privacy regulations are put in place, the value of first-party and zero-party data continues to rise. You can use your program to incentivize data collection. In this example, Foot Locker pulled in data on key profile questions, showed progress to completion, and gave points for every question that was answered. We can expect the importance of loyalty programs to increase as they become even bigger treasure troves of personalization data. And as you talk to your partners, such as CrowdTwist, many of which are on the Movable Link exchange, you'll find that executing these strategies can be made relatively simple. Of similar importance for retailers are store locators. They are ubiquitous in the bottom of many omni-channel retailers' emails, and their goal is to inform customers of their closest brick-and-mortar location and to drive cross-channel behaviors. That strategy is now challenged as the Apple iOS updates mean that the current location cannot be detected by IP address due to the IP being masked by Apple. The solution to this is quite simple. Instead of relying on IP address, merge in the consumer's preferred store on file or the most recently shopped store. That data, combined with integrations with exchange partners such as Yext, can make this a set it and forget it update. But now that this has become more important, we need to ask ourselves, how do we elevate our omni-channel strategy? It isn't just about maps and emails. It's about delivering a customer experience that's easy, relevant, and personalized no matter where the consumer is engaging. Take, for example, BOPIS. We all know how important it has become since COVID, and we now know that consumers are more omni-channel than ever, and that they're looking for convenience, especially around the holidays. So how can we meet their expectations? Well, when it comes to omni-channel, mobile has become a natural partner to email. We continue to experience rapid growth in mobile commerce, and we know that most consumers use multiple channels per transaction. If our goal is to focus on omni-channel, we need to bring relevant email content into mobile. For example, if someone has abandoned their cart on site, they likely have also received a triggered email. But why not send them a notification on their mobile that the product is available at their local store? And as an added bonus, Apple's iOS changes do not affect mobile-rich push in-app or inbox. And notice how this message is truly personalized to the individual's behaviors and how this unifies web behaviors and email messages with the mobile app. And let's remember that site traffic is often 10 or 15x that of your app. So using those site behaviors to push relevant mobile messages is a great way to drive app traffic. Again, partners such as Branch and Airship on the Movable Ink Exchange make connecting email and mobile experiences seamless. And lastly, what you may have picked up on is that as long as we have the necessary data, we can meet the goals of each strategy. One of the biggest sources of data for retailers working with Movable Ink is our Stories behavioral tracking capability. I want to note that Apple's MPP updates do not affect our behavioral tracking. So what this means is that a marketer's goal of creating personalization at scale is still possible. That can be something like a dynamic category banner that shows a recently browsed category on site or collapses if nothing has been browsed. Notice here that the pink box section of the email is a category banner that updates based on a specific consumer's behaviors on site. And similarly, that approach can be applied to full hero takeovers that make the most visible part of the email personalized to the individual recipient's recent interest. And as we continue to focus on creative personalization at scale, it's important to note that the same data can be used to influence the header image, the header copy, different CTAs, et cetera, across the entire email. So these were just 3 of the many strategies that can be evolved as a result of Apple's MPP updates. And your Movable Ink content can certainly provide more information on other use cases as well as tactical implementation. I'll now pass it over to our financial services team.
Thanks, Julio. I'm Alex Manley, Associate Director for Financial Services within our strategy practice. I joined Movable Ink having had various marketing roles across financial services over the last 11 years, both brand side and agency side. Most recently, I led American Express's international campaign strategy for one of their lead card benefits across 15 markets. And over the next 7 minutes, I'll share some key financial services strategies on how to adapt to the upcoming iOS 15 changes, focusing on driving engagement in financial services, emails, and mobile as well. For financial services marketers on the call, we know that our ultimate goal is to drive loyalty and drive engagement too. And many of our marketing tactics are designed to enhance customer experience and make transacting with our brands as easy as possible for the customer. We recognize that financial services isn't immune to all of the upheaval over the last 18 months. And in fact, according to Ernst & Young's Future Consumer Index, 43% of consumers say that the way they banked has changed significantly since the start of the pandemic, with 27% of consumers expecting more flexibility from their banking relationship over the next 24 months. Before we dive into the creative over the next few slides, we can also observe that 60% of consumers plan to use both mobile and online banking services more than they had prior to the pandemic. In my experience, and I think most marketers on the call will agree, the more consistent our marketing collateral is across each touch point, the higher the customer engagement becomes. That's why it's important to create an email experience that consistently meets your brand's web and mobile experience. These two email communications enable brands to do just that. The first is our incredible financial example, which I'll take you through next. And the second is a recent award-winning example from E-Trade, which brings many of those first-party data strategies to life. So, starting with baseline table stakes, we can leverage single email templates to showcase multiple product or card types in a dynamic visual. Another effective way to engage customers is the use of dynamic hero images. Tailored copy can be pulled into personally address the individual customer, product, and operating system of the recipient. Moving on to a more advanced tactic, Movable Link can support your brand to leverage first-party data, which enhances engagement. In this example, we can review a monthly account snapshot. We've observed with our clients that the level of customer engagement rises sharply when served up personal account information. Examples of such data points range from customer-level data like account balance and spend category breakdown to targeted loan or interest rate offers. And typically, these are powered by an API or a web crawl. Movable Link can also be leveraged to thoughtfully prioritize benefit reinforcement language or market trend articles based on the customer's previous actions or levels of engagement. Finally, in an effort to gamify and create a more engaging onboarding experience, marketers can leverage first-party data to power action trackers. These provide customers with a user-friendly visualization for the progress they've made and clear follow-up actions to drive additional lifetime customer value. So, after seeing a mock-up, you might be thinking, how can I actually put this into market? This in-market example from E-Trade, which recently won the prestigious Tearsheet Award for Best Data Marketing Campaign, is a perfect example. This email leverages first-party data to activate creative, showcasing customers' annual and total portfolio performance within this year in review. Data points include total account value change, which can be both month or year to date, as well as the relevant specific customer account information such as number of trades or number of friends referred. Additionally, E-Trade is pairing personalized data points with relevant latest news content from their website. These articles are cropped from the front end of their website, allowing them to be reused on a regular basis, such as triggered campaigns. This adds an extra level of engagement with limited additional lift from your marketing team. One of the most important mandates for a financial services marketer is sharing accurate APR and rate information. By leveraging Movable Link to automate the production and personalization of these messages, your marketing teams can be assured that their days of assembling and testing 50 emails in a mail plan are over. With the iOS 15 updates, these rates will still be delivered in recent time. And as marketers will know, financial services already operate in a realm of recent time because data systems often operate with latency. Movable Link is still able to take you from weeks-old data to recent-time data, which remains best in class in the industry. For compliance, your brand may choose to include a timestamp to ensure that the customer is aware of the exact time rates were live, plus a call to action that drives to site with up-to-date live rates. In addition to that, given the huge rise that we've seen in mobile banking and finance app users this past year, it's a perfect place to also display rates. By displaying rates within an in-app message, the rates can update at the exact moment of engagement. And finally, let's take a look at how data visualization can support early engagement. We know for financial services marketers that early engagement is critical. In mobile, for example, Signicat observed last year that mobile abandonment rate for FinServ brands took a sharp rise to 63%, and that's up from 38% in 2019. With these critical journeys in mind, we've seen great success with some of our clients using action trackers. These are a great way to guide your customers through the onboarding and setup of an account or app. These visualizations can be powered by API, CSV, to showcase in the journey, mimicking the logged-in state they might see in mobile or online. On the left in the email, brands can display personalized action trackers, whether that's onboarding reminders or checklists to prompt completion. For email, this will update in recent time post-send, and a timestamp can also be included for reassurance of the latest update. On the right-hand side, we can mirror this consistently into the app experience too. These visuals would be updated at moment of open or engagement in app. So that's everything from our financial services section. Now I'd like to turn things over to Naveen Wall, who'll be walking you through the media and technology vertical.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. I'm Naveen Wall, Director of Strategy. I lead our media and technology practice here at Movable Ink. I've been with the company for almost 2 years now, based in New York, and I joined as a former client from SiriusXM. I've spent the last 10 years leading CRM programs at organizations including Shutterstock and Global Radio in the UK. And today I work with some of the world's largest media and technology organizations on their biggest strategic initiatives. Over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be taking us through a few strategies that really deliver best-in-class customer experiences whilst driving performance in this changing landscape. Okay, so we've all seen the headlines on the huge subscriber growth that streaming services have benefited from during the pandemic. We've now started to see that slow down as markets begin to saturate. Competition is tough, and customer wallet share is finite. The average household currently subscribes to 4 streaming services, and 64% of customers say they downgrade a service or cancel it entirely to pick up another. In this fiercely competitive landscape, new content really is a leading factor that sets streaming services apart to not only attract audiences, but to retain them too. That's where a pre-release email like this comes in. It's sent pre-release to drive awareness for new content and to ensure these huge investments are being discovered as well. Netflix alone spent $17 billion on content this year, but with that spend comes huge volume, which can make it really impossible to find what you want to watch. 50% of customers note they'd cancel a service if they found it overwhelming or challenging to discover new content. That means that content really isn't king if you can't find it, and relevance is therefore royal. Personalized experiences are really at the crux of helping customers navigate these huge content catalogs to find new content that they actually want to engage with. So how do we drive personalization and relevance to deliver best-in-class content discovery, taking into account the upcoming iOS 15 changes? Well, let's break it down with this personalized email that would be sent prior to a tentpole release to drive content discovery and anticipation. Rather than sending out a generic coming soon message, this email is hyper-personalized to the customer's affinities and account data to make sure it's as relevant as possible to them, not only for this email, but also setting us up for a successful omni-channel strategy too. The hero here is table stakes. We're speaking to the customer by referencing their first name using first-party data. Next up, to drive awareness on when this content will become available, we're counting down to the known release date. Knowing that on average, 80% of your opens are going to happen in the first 7 hours, we're counting down to a denomination that's relevant for that open period, the number of days. With Apple caching images sometime between delivery and open, referencing days rather than hours, minutes, and seconds ensures that this experience is most up to date, that the customer could actually receive an email, really driving that anticipation. We're also targeting it by zip code to ensure that the time referenced and also the time zones that we're calling out in the creative are personalized to the individual. Up next, you can see the actor imagery that we're displaying is also targeted using first-party data, affinity data. Dependent on which actors you've previously shown an affinity with based on your previous watch history, you'll see different title art that highlights the actor that you're interested in. That's a really powerful personalization point. 53% of customers consider content that's relevant to their favorite celebrities as a key differentiator between their subscription services. All right, so this is a pre-event email, and we're driving awareness and content discovery, but our real goal is to get the customer to come back and stream this content when it releases. If we're sending this email several days before launch, they're not going to be interacting with this email when that content releases. So how do we make sure that we stay top of mind for them? Well, using first-party data, for those that are opted into push notifications, we're driving a high-value action. We're asking them to add to their watch list, which is not only known to impact retention, but more importantly here, opens the opportunity to continue the customer's journey omni-channel. Once they've added to their watch list, on release, you can target them with a push notification to stream as soon as this content becomes available. Since this is a segment that have explicitly stated intent to watch this content, a timely push notification really maximizes your opportunity to drive that engagement outside the email channel when it really counts, when that content becomes available. Finally, at the bottom of this email, we're taking the opportunity to drive further content discovery and streaming engagement by highlighting trending content. With minimal effort, we're using an automated evergreen module that taps into a Now Trending API. The module can be scaled and used across multiple programs, and we're automatically displaying recently trending content. This next strategy focuses on a large goal for media organizations with live programming schedules, increasing upcoming programming awareness to get customers to come back and tune in. Now, we've already spoken about how all of this content it makes it a struggle to find what you want to watch, and that's even truer with live schedules. The reality is that customers are expecting their digital services to know who they are and personalize relevant content to them. Not doing so can have dire impacts on your unsubscribe rates, with 50% of customers unsubscribing because of irrelevant emails or emails sent too frequently. This means simply presenting an upcoming schedule for that day pulled in real time just isn't enough. With the iOS 15 updates, live schedules could also be out of date by the time a customer opens your email, again, because those images are cached between delivery and open. Personalization is always going to be the best experience here. Paring back the amount of programming that we're exposing the customer to so that it's not overwhelming, and only highlighting the upcoming schedules that we know they're interested in. Keeping those iOS 15 updates in mind, this email really delivers the best-in-class experience and most up-to-date schedule a customer can get in email, and it's made even more relevant through first and zero-party data personalization. So using zero-party data and first-party data, we're personalizing this schedule to only show programming of interest. Firstly, we're displaying a schedule that shows the upcoming schedule for your open period and onwards. We're then doubling down on personalizing to a one-to-one level, displaying the customer's favorite team schedule based on previous engagement and given preferences. These are the games that are going to be most important to them and the ones that they're going to want to see in their schedule. For each of these personalized games, we're then adding in a push notification reminder CTA to opt in to an alert at game time. Again, just as we saw in the last example, this allows you to continue their journey to mobile, prompting them to engage when this game is live. Then finally, at the bottom of the email here, we're taking the opportunity to validate and capture zero-party data. For your low engagement segments, we're targeting a module asking them to identify their favorite teams. A clear value exchange is noted in the copy, letting them know that we'll personalize upcoming schedules with their favorite teams if they volunteer over that data. That data collection could also be used to progressively profile that customer, targeting relevant future content to them, like news on their favorite teams, enhancing that overall fan experience. Now, I've spoken conceptually about how these strategies can be strengthened to evolve as the industry shifts to increase privacy protection. But the reality is that the most sophisticated media and tech organizations are already employing several of these tactics, and they're doing it with lean teams efficiently by leaning on automation. DAZN here are one of the world's fastest growing sports streaming apps in the world. They've leaned into one of Movable Inc.'s largest benefits, the ability to extend strategies and technology leveraged in the email channel to mobile. Here, DAZN are tapping into an API that they're already using in email to power a rich push notification that dynamically generates a schedule of upcoming streaming events. The app calls an API to build a schedule of upcoming events, and that's constructed and personalized using first-party data, including the customer's region, their sports, and their team preferences, delivering the personalized schedule that you can see in this image here as a rich push notification. Now, this extension of strategy not only drove a 57% lift in engagement, it was also automated, driving huge production efficiencies by eliminating the need for ongoing design and production resources. Now, I want to leave you with one final thought before I hand off to Elle, who's going to take us through travel, hospitality, and food services. A third of time spent with media is going to be on mobile this year. That really underscores the opportunity in mobile and why personalization in this channel is going to become essential to remain competitive. Over to you, Elle.
Thanks, Naveen. Hi, everyone. I'm Elle Cross, Director of Strategy, currently leading the travel, hospitality, and food services practice. I've been with the company for almost 2 years. I started my career in the travel space with experience at a private jet chartering service and TravelClick, an Amadeus company. I then pivoted to work in financial services. Some of you FinServ marketers may know me well, as I'm lucky enough to be able to work across verticals. And after that wonderful section from Alex Manley on financial services, those of you in travel and hospitality likely see some parallels, mainly that they can both be highly emotional experiences. I've spent the past 10 plus years focused on communicating with customers, and I'm excited to be talking with you all today. Over the next 7 minutes, I'll be taking us through a few strategies that deliver best-in-class customer experiences while driving performance in this changing landscape. I know we have some food services brands on with us today. We'll dive into what's been happening in that space in a few slides, but first let's focus on travel and hospitality. To say this has been a hard year for the industry would be an understatement, and for many brands, the marketing and communications teams have had to deal with lower capacity while owning the majority of interactions with their guests. Email has always been an extremely successful channel for the hospitality space, and it continued its dominance over the past 18 months. Ultimately, we know that travel brands that focus on personalization and engagement will come out of the pandemic with the strongest customer loyalty, as personalization is what customers want. You can see here that not only do customers desire tailored information based on preferences, but they'll spend more for it. Additionally, when we see customers being messaged across channels, we see an increase in customer engagement. This means omnichannel is more important than ever. Normally, travel brands get to make a massive impact on customer loyalty through in-person interactions. However, that's not much of an option now and has altered experience from pre-COVID. It's now imperative to ensure the brand experience is carried throughout all customer touchpoints. One way we're seeing success from brands on creating this through line is leveraging zero and first-party data to develop extremely personalized communications. This is a great example from JetBlue on doing just that. They're leveraging customers' behaviors, spend, and trends to develop this year-in-review email for their credit card customers. The highly engaging campaign celebrates the customer, showcases their behaviors, and quite honestly strikes a really amazing tone on how the year has been while looking forward to better times ahead. We know that travelers are more likely to sign up for loyalty programs focused on them, so leveraging the super rich data that you already have on your customer base will only increase your guest loyalty and NPS. We're going to go into a few incredible branded examples that are likely top of mind for most of our travel and hospitality brands: driving bookings based on availability and pricing, and driving engagement and loyalty. Let's kick off with the goal of driving bookings, revenue, and efficiency. We'll break down this email by module. These may all be used across one email or across multiple campaigns you have. One great way to kick off an email is leveraging previous search behavior. Here you can see Megan was looking at flights to New Zealand, and we're pulling in all that information along with an image of the Auckland skyline. I'm sure it's daunting to imagine how many versions this email you'd need to customize by every location. However, when clients connect Movable Ink to their image library, these background images will automatically be pulled in within one campaign. Next, you can see that dates and rates are being pulled in for the customer to see what's available. With the iOS 15 update, these rates will be pulled at the moment the image is cached, so brands can choose to leverage a timestamp or just cover it in your T's and C's. A few folks have already talked about this and kind of the variants that we're seeing here, but ultimately the data is going to be coming after your email is deployed, but before the customer opens it. So we can dive into that a little bit more in the Q&A, as I've seen a few of those come through. So you can also include copy that alerts the customer to the purchase rates before they're gone, and it'll not only drive urgency, but may condition customers to check their emails faster and more frequently moving forward. A module like this can also leverage search history on departure airport, or if you know your customer's home zip code or preferred departure airport. This data is key to pulling the most relevant information for them. And finally, include available offers or other key behavioral elements within a module at the bottom. That can shift based on the recipient's current reward status, profile details, or persona type within one email creative, another efficiency win. Here we've got an example highlighting the loyalty program and credit card bundle. This could be a pure loyalty program play, a status update if they've already enrolled, or just an update on how your brand is tackling whatever the latest on COVID protocols. As brands shift towards the majority of their interactions with guests being virtual over the past year, engagement is key. This becomes even more important and true for marketers with the iOS 15 update. As open data is impacted, click data is more important than ever, and encouraging engagement within emails will only help strengthen your brand. We've got a lot in this one email, so we'll break it down into a few elements. You can see here we've highlighted a poll to learn about guests. One thing we know for sure is travel personas have shifted for many, and new personas have been born due to the pandemic. By leveraging polling, you can learn about who your guests are and utilize this information in future campaigns. Here you can see we're showing how many people have booked these destinations over the past few days to drive FOMO. And in this visual, we're also showing the polling results. This is something impacted by iOS 15, and depending on your program, you can work with your CX team on the best approach. Since most of our largest clients are throttling campaigns, there is still a strong use case to show polling results, as those who are clicking in the earliest delivered emails will be impacting the later delivered polling results. Additionally, you can work with your ESPs on throttle logic and timing to get the most out of your campaigns and customer base. Next, we've included a scratch-off deal module. There is a pricing tease which could be included or not, up to you, but by showing specific hotels or destinations and allowing the guests to engage by scratching off, you're seeing what they're most interested in, you're getting that click data, and hopefully solidifying a purchase on an offer available at that moment. Additionally, since the scratch-off experience does take them to a landing page, it'll be the most recent availability and pricing. And finally, we're pulling in a social feed. This is a great way to drive FOMO, bring customers to your other channels, and encourage them to continue to tag your brand for their chance to be featured. Depending on your brand's social cadence, there should be minimal to no impact on this type of module due to the iOS 15 update. And before we spend a few minutes covering food services, we did want to quickly remind you all how important and impactful personalized mobile app messaging can be, as many other vertical presenters covered. Try saying that 10 times fast. Always ensure you have a through line of tone and personalization from in-person guest experiences, email, and app messaging. Guests think of your brand as a whole, not by channel, so ensuring personalization across each interaction is imperative. All right, so now shifting to what's been happening with the food services space and how iOS 15 update may impact some initiatives you're leveraging today. First, let's set the scene to what's happened over the past 18 months. The pandemic drastically changed customer behavior and expectations within the food services industry. We've seen a huge lift in digital order growth, up 111%, and we've seen some key behavior shifts from customers, from planning when they'll get delivery to shopping around for the best loyalty program. Customers now have sky-high expectations for when it comes to convenience. They've become accustomed to near instant gratification and enjoy their favorite restaurant brands without needing to ever leave their home. Luckily, guest behavioral data can be used to personalize and streamline various experiences. With this shift in digital growth, marketers have to think with an omni-channel mindset. And just like I covered in travel, ensure guests have the best experience possible regardless of channel. Customers crave personalized experiences, and you can leverage your first and zero-party data to drive specific behaviors, such as repeat dining. And finally, loyalty is becoming table stakes. It's the perfect tool to retain the influx of new guests that were brought on by the pandemic. So let's dive into this incredible mock. To start, we want to think about how the application of weather data is going to shift with the iOS 15 update. Ultimately, image caching and the inability to target by IP address will change some strategic approaches to weather. With this said, we still highly recommend you leverage this tactic. You just need to reshape the customer experience and meet guests' evolving needs to gain share of wallet from competitors during a time where customer demand is higher than usual. As mentioned on one of the previous slides, 56% of customers want to pre-schedule food delivery before bad weather. You can use customer zip code on file or assigned home store to know where the guest is located. Then you can pull in forecasting based on the time of week and specific weather types. In this example, we've displayed a module that shows rain in the weekend forecast and promotes the convenience of planning ahead by ordering delivery to stay dry indoors. Next, we want to call out the power of appropriate device linking. This is something you can continue to do after the iOS 15 update, and it's a great way to drive app downloads for customers who don't already have it on their mobile devices, or deep link users to the appropriate page within your app. Additionally, you can leverage previous customer behaviors for an added level of personalization that provides a more convenient experience to guests. Customers are creatures of habit and often have key items in mind that drive them to make their purchases. By reminding them of their favorite items, providing reorder capabilities, or showing them the best pair to go with those meals, you can help drive that urge to order and increase check size by streamlining the path to purchase. Finally, we know loyalty is key. As a reminder, 52% of adults will change where they order from based on the available loyalty program. Make sure you're driving urgency, aspiration, and loyalty by highlighting your program and how guests can continue to gain more. Gamification instills a sense of pride and status when customers unlock free items and graduate to higher reward tiers. Continue to push this behavior by providing a view of what they've done and how they can continue to gain more. That wraps up our industry-specific strategies. We know there was a lot covered, and we look forward to working through these strategies and any shifts in your program in more detail. I'm going to pass it back to Allison Lindland for some final thoughts before we go into Q&A.
Thank you, Elle. So this brings us to our wrap up, and I'm just going to give some quick final thoughts before we go to the Q&A. So first, start auditing what opens mean to your program today. Then look to see what sources of first-party data you can activate, either internally or via partners like the Movable Ink Exchange. Don't just restructure your scorecards, but make sure all your business partners internally understand why and how they've been adjusted in advance of the change. No one likes a surprise. And at the same time, get them comfortable in understanding the point that I shared at the top of this presentation, that the email channel is constantly evolving towards higher privacy standards, all while delivering improved performance and a more personalized customer experience. And none of that's going to change now. And it's important to remember that all of this is happening in the context of an omni-channel experience. And we're here if you want to talk more about our mobile personalization product. And speaking about personalization, now is the time to lean into privacy and personalization and double down on first-party data, especially as your competitors may retreat or take programs offline in a moment of chaos. Feel free to connect with all of us on LinkedIn. We're going to be publishing a lot more content in the coming weeks, so that would be a great first place to see it. And for our clients, please reach out to your CX teams for much more detailed versions of this presentation. So now we're going to move into our Q&A, and we've been answering a lot of questions live, but we have a couple more that we've been sort of holding. So let's go to a couple that I'm just going to pull up from our section here. So let's see. We have a great one from Rabia. So Rabia asks, do we foresee other providers, and perhaps Android, following in Apple's footsteps? This is a great question. Elle, do you want to answer this question?
If I could find my mute button, yes. Sorry, everyone. That's the line of the last 18 months. Yeah, so we are anticipating that others will follow suit. This is very much a play on privacy. And with Apple taking this kind of strong stance, we think others will be doing the same. There's the timing of it and when it'll happen, but we think this will be common practice. So as we're thinking through all of the different changes, even if you do want to kind of gradually shift things out where you're still targeting others with it, it should be a long-term plan that this will be common state.
I think, we were referring to it as like nobody wants to be out privacied internally. So it's like a privacy Cold War. So, we've seen some signals internally, and so I would begin to prepare for that on your end. But great question, Rabia. Just looking through, let's see. We had another question from Karen. If we can't accurately track email open rates, what's the best method for reporting on email performance? Will click to open rate be accurate? It's a great question. Julio, do you want to take that?
I love the voluntold approach that we're taking here. So what I would say to that question is, email has two goals, right? One is to engender loyalty and keep the brand top of mind. But at the end of the day, we're all being goaled on revenue. So I think we're going to see a bigger focus on downstream metrics that are going to be more indicative of channel health. So, as we said at the beginning of the chat, emails or opens are dead is a trope. But I think more and more metrics associated with open are just going to be impacted as this iOS change continues to develop. So I would encourage all the marketers to focus on those metrics that are really more indicative of overall channel health. And that's not just revenue, but your overall customer lifetime value, right? Are your consumers taking those high value actions that you want them to take? Are they signing up for your loyalty program? Are they signing up for your credit card? Are they doing anything else that you think is really important and indicative of that customer health? That's probably going to be the bigger set of metrics that we're going to see more marketers focus on.
And, they're the meat of what the program is all about. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that the tide has sort of gone out on the higher level metrics. And, on our customer advisory board, people had talked for years about the pressure that they were under for years to send to very high levels of lists, and that those were not necessarily meaningful metrics anyway. Certainly those of you who have partner programs with huge commitments to get eyeballs on things know this. And sometimes, these denominators, again, aren't necessarily where the meat is. So this is not a bad thing. This is just abrupt and it's a change. So we have a question from Stephen about the percentage of Apple Mail users that we expect to opt into this setting. This is a great question. So I can take this in the spirit of things being voluntold. There was a similar privacy setting that went into effect in iOS 14.5 for, I think it was called IDFA, and it was relating to tracking across apps. And those in the mobile space were very concerned that this would have like 100% adoption, and similar to the mail privacy protection, it would be an opt-in setting. So consumers were opted in by default, as they will be to the MPP settings. It actually hasn't been as high as people thought. So there were, I think, projections that it would be 90%, but I think people have, it's been proven to be somewhere close to 70% or 65%. So, I think, again, the question remains to be seen. And then for you as a marketer, the question is, how big is Apple Mail as a proportion of your recipients? So by and large, we see around 46%. That's what the Litmus data is in the US and UK, and that's what our MoveLink data is. But again, you should look at your own data. And then we'll see what happens with the uptake in September with the rollout. There's been some funny memes of people saying that, they're getting really bad ads and they're likely to go turn off the IFDA because it's been so bad. They're getting such terrible ads on mobile. So, consumer awareness of this stuff is now beginning to actually break through. So we'll see if consumer awareness of this will actually happen. All right, just looking through questions. We have a question from Thomas. Will there be any option to identify iOS 15 users to exclude them from analysis, or should we consider that the KPIs leverage opens are dead? That's a funny question. Anyone on the team care to answer that?
I can take a first pass at it.
Yeah.
So from the movable ink perspective, what my understanding is from our engineers and our tech team is that we will be able to identify Apple. I don't think that we'll be able to identify Apple, iPhone versus iPad versus et cetera, but we will be able to identify Apple. And so from our end, we'll be able to segment the data in different ways or cut the data to look at reporting. but I guess, you know, we have a lot to learn on how we're going to cut the data across the industry over the next few months. My initial reaction today on July 7th, I'll timestamp that, is, you know, yes, it'll be worth looking at, you know, iOS versus non-iOS performance in the beginning part of it, but at the end of the day, it's going to be about full channel performance, right? And so again, it's going to be about identifying those KPIs that are more down funnel. So part of your question is, should we consider that KPIs leverage opens are dead? I think they're still indicative of overall channel health, but the denominator and the formula is still flawed now, right? Because of all those opens being registered, or of all those Apple opens being registered as opens. So I think it's a tainted metric, not a dead metric.
And I'll just add on to that one, Julio, also timestamp myself, July 7th. The big thing I would think about is, if you are doing it that way, are your iOS users the same personas as your non-iOS users? And how does that change how you take those results and kind of leverage them for the future? So it's just something to keep in mind. You're really talking about different personas here who might be Apple versus non-Apple, and how do you kind of learn from that, but with a grain of salt?
We've always seen a very different breakdown of device type between different types of clients. So that's a great reminder that they are very different personas. So I think that brings us to the end of our Q&A and the end of our webinar today. We want to thank you all for joining us. We're happy to answer questions directly. If people want to reach out to us, you can reach us at clientstrategy@moveableink.com, and you can also reach any of us directly. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. And thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate it.